Hospitalized 3. It was 4:35 a.m., still dark outside, but the night had already faded, the darkness gradually thinning and the surroundings becoming clearer. I had to run from the 3rd floor down to the 1st floor, then head to the duty room in the main lobby. The hallway was a mix of light and shadow, and since I wasn't used to paying attention to my surroundings, I kept my head down and walked straight ahead. Thud, thud. The sound of my footsteps echoed louder than ever in the silent hallway. I passed the entire corridor on the 2nd floor. Now I just needed to go down to the 1st floor and take a few more steps to reach the duty room. Thud, 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 thump. There it was, a sound of someone else's footsteps. I stopped and turned around to look behind me. The spot where I stood was illuminated by a yellow light forming a circular glow. From here, looking down both sides of the hallway, I could only see clusters of light interspersed with darkness. Silence. Thud, thud. I listened carefully. Clearly, someone was still walking. Not in this hallway, but coming down from the 3rd floor. Instinctively, I looked up at the stairs. Thump! A hand was gripping the stair railing. Pale, slender fingers slid along the banister, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. Thud, thud. I leaned to one side to see more clearly who was coming down the stairs. Thud. It stopped. The person no longer moved, and the hand gripping the railing remained still. A nurse? I stepped out of the lit area, placing my foot on the stairs, intending to ask who it was. Clack! A sudden noise came from the hallway to my left. Startled, I turned to look, but saw nothing except the alternating patches of light and shadow. Probably just the wind blowing a tree branch against the window, I thought to calm myself. I looked back up at the stairs. No one. The hand was gone. The stairs were empty. Apart from the dim light from the bulb near where I stood, the stairwell was almost pitch black. Where had that person gone? Weren't they just coming down to the 2nd floor? What's going on? I stared for a moment longer, making sure no one was on the stairs before lowering my head and stepping down. Thump! I lowered my head, and what caught my eye was someone at the bottom of the stairs on the 1st floor, staring up at me, face to face. It was an entirely unfamiliar face. I could only see half of it. A soulless black eye, a pale, ghostly complexion, and a corner of the mouth twisted into a grin that stretched almost to the ear. That gaze drilled into my mind, making my head feel like it was about to explode. This was exactly what I had been dreading. My intuition screamed that it had been watching me all along. Cold. A gust of wind blew past me, chilling my brain to the point of numbness. A shiver ran down my spine like an electric shock, and my hands and feet began to tremble involuntarily. Dear God, is that a person or a ghost down there? Why is so much happening today? I felt rooted to the spot, unable to move. My mind needed to take control now because my rationality had completely frozen. Thump! That face suddenly retreated behind the stairs. I jolted. Where did it go? Up to the 2nd floor or out into the lobby? If I could still see it, I would only be scared. But now that it had disappeared, I wasn't just scared. I was deeply unsettled. What if it's a ghost? What if I go down there and it jumps out to kill me? Or worse, what if it's crawling up here to get me? I remained motionless, my thoughts spiraling into panic. After a few seconds, no one came my way. Everything around me was silent. There was truly no one there. Maybe I imagined it. It's so dark down there. How could I have seen clearly? Perhaps it was just a shadow cast on the stairs by something else. Once I managed to calm myself a bit, I chuckled softly. Why am I scaring myself with ghost stories? My mind's playing tricks on me. Even so, as I continued down the stairs, I slowed my pace. I stared intently at each step, scanning for anything unusual below. Step by step, I descended in growing anxiety, but nothing happened. Upon reaching the hallway, I felt some relief. The main lobby was well lit, with many lights brightening up the space. I hurried to the duty room on the left. Inside, 2 nurses were there. They both seemed sleepy. One had her head down on the table when I glanced in. I asked them to check on my friend in room 301. The nurse who had been dozing off immediately sat up, chuckled awkwardly, and started gathering medical supplies into a tray before following me upstairs. I noticed that neither of these nurses was the person I had seen earlier. One of them was the nurse who had checked on Kwon when I first arrived. Her name tag read Trun Huyen Kang. The nurse walking with me now was Vang Ti Ding. She was slightly short but had a well-rounded figure, and her smile revealed charming dimples. As we climbed the stairs, I asked, "Are you Din? Are there only 2 nurses on duty tonight at the hospital?" "Yes," she replied. "There are usually 3 of us on duty during the week, but it's the weekend, so the hospital only assigned 2 tonight." "Only 2? So which ward is Nurse Dung on duty in?" "Dung who?" she asked. "Jang Ti Dung, the tall nurse about this height. I saw her passing by the 3rd floor corridor earlier." I described the nurse I had encountered to Din. "There's no one by that name. The emergency and treatment department tonight has a male doctor on duty, and among the nurses working with me, I don't know anyone named Dung," Din replied. "No one with that name, really?" I stood there, stunned. By then, we had already reached the 3rd floor. The light in the last room down the hallway was still on. When we entered Kwang's room, he tried to sit up upon seeing me and the nurse, but she quickly told him to stay put, assuring him that she could perform the checkup while he lay down. She was efficient and quick. As soon as she sat down, she wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Kwang's arm, measured his blood pressure, listened to his heartbeat, checked his stitches, and asked him a few questions about his mental and physical state. Then she took out a few pills, explaining that they were anti-inflammatory and antibiotics for post-surgery recovery. I stood beside her, pouring a glass of water to hand to the nurse. But as soon as she received the glass, she froze. "Where did you get this cup?" she asked. "The nurse named Dung brought it to my room," I replied. "No, our hospital hasn't used these tin cups for a long time. Tin cups rust easily, so we switched to stainless steel ones. The hospital strictly prohibits using these old cups," Din said. I don't know, but there really was a nurse named Dung who brought this cup to my room. I know almost all the nurses here, but there's no one named Dung. You must be mistaken," Din said while taking a stainless steel cup from her tray, pouring water into it, and handing the pills to Kwang to take slowly. "I saw Nurse Dung in the hallway. She seemed to have come out from the last room down the hall." Din suddenly froze. She finally looked up at me, her face showing both shock and confusion. "You mean the last room on this 3rd floor corridor?" "Yes. She was even carrying a tray of medicine like yours, as if she had just finished checking on that room." "That's impossible," Din said. "There's no one in that room to check on." "But the light in that room is still on," I insisted. This time, Din truly widened her eyes at me, as if what I had just said was completely absurd. "Are you sure it was the last room? Why are you asking that?" "I just saw the light on. If you don't believe me, I'll take you there to see for yourself." Din immediately stood up. I opened the door, and we both stepped out of the room. Standing in the hallway, I pointed towards the end of the corridor and said, "There, the last room." The next words I was about to say got stuck in my throat. All the other rooms were pitch black, including the one at the end of the hallway. "Which room are you talking about?" "You don't know, do you? That room was the emergency room 3 years ago. But after the hospital built a new emergency wing, this area has only been used for post-emergency care. That room was turned into a storage room filled with medical supplies and equipment. It's only opened during the day. At night, no one is allowed to open it. But I really saw someone come from that direction, and that person gave me that cup. You must be too tired and saw it wrong. The cup was probably already on the table. Are you trying to scare me? It won't work, you know. I've worked at this hospital for years. Childish pranks like that don't scare me," Din said with a smile before turning back into the room to continue checking on Kwang. Now, I was the only one standing dazed in the hallway, my eyes fixed on that room at the end. So it had been quietly submerged in darkness just like the other rooms all along. Why did it suddenly feel so eerie? A whisper echoed in my head. "It was a ghost that let you see it!" Zap! Suddenly a flash of light flickered from inside the last room. A chill ran down my spine. In the next second, I saw it. Someone standing at the door of that room, facing me. Then there was only dim darkness left. Dawn was breaking, the stillness of the night fading away. I could hear birds chirping faintly and the soft swishing of a broom sweeping the floor. I stood frozen, eyes still locked on the room ahead. I didn't want to see anything like that again, but I couldn't look away either. My head buzzed. the result of a sleepless night and the most nerve-wracking night of my life. While I was still frozen in shock, Din stepped out of the patient's room again. Seeing me standing like a statue outside the door, she lightly tapped my arm, snapping me out of my daze. I turned to look at her. My face must have looked extremely tense because Din gave me a puzzled look and asked, "What did you see? You look really strange." Instinctively, I glanced toward the last room at the end of the hallway. Darkness filled my eyes. I shook my head, feeling utterly exhausted. Din followed my gaze, but when I didn't respond, she sighed and said, "You must be really sleepy, huh? Just go back inside with your friend. He's fine now. You can lie down on any empty bed and get some rest." She patted my shoulder, opened the door, and gently guided me back into the room. As the door closed, I slumped into a chair, my head spinning, my eyes blurry. Kwong noticed me coming in and looked over, but I couldn't be bothered to pay him any attention. All I wanted was to go home and sleep everything away. "What's wrong with you?" Kwong struggled to sit up from the bed, probably noticing how terrible I looked. "Nothing. If you're sleepy, just sleep. I'm fine now. Or you can just go home and come back when I'm discharged this afternoon." I didn't respond. After a moment of thinking, I asked, "Did you see the face of the person who ran into your bike?" "Not really. I'm pretty sure it was a woman. Her long hair was covering her face. She appeared so suddenly, and the motorcycle's headlight was too bright in my eyes. All I remember is that she was about 1.5 meters tall, with a pale white face and big frog-like eyes." "Are you sure about the height?" "Yeah. I had my headlights on, and about 10 meters away, someone 1.5 meters tall would have their face clearly illuminated." So it was true. The nurse from last night was also about 1.5 meters tall. I lowered my head, my hands limp at my sides. So this is what it feels like to encounter a ghost.